The observation deck of Outpost Theta-7 hung suspended in the velvet silence of deep space, a glass-domed sanctuary orbiting the sapphire rings of a gas giant named Oryx Prime. Inside, the air hummed with recycled oxygen and the quiet whir of environmental regulators. I sat at a polished steel console, my fingers hovering over a holographic translation matrix, surrounded by floating glyphs of a dozen extraterrestrial dialects. My name is Dr. Eris Thorne, Senior Xenolinguist for the United Earth Coalition, and my job was simple in theory, impossible in practice: bridge the gap between human speech and the symphonic, multi-tonal languages of the galaxy's myriad species. That afternoon, I was working with Veolia. She belonged to the Lyrian Concord, a species whose biology evolved under twin suns and crystalline atmospheres. Her skin shimmered with faint iridescent scales that caught the ambient light like crushed opal. Her eyes, large and luminous, held vertical pupils that dilated with emotional resonance. Lyrians communicated through harmonic vocalizations, subtle facial micro-expressions, and bioluminescent dermal responses. They were precise, deliberate, and culturally reserved. I had spent 3 months learning their phonetic structures, their syntax trees, their cultural taboos. I thought I was ready. I was not. The session had begun routinely. We were cross-referencing diplomatic terminology for an upcoming trade summit. Veolia sat across from me, her posture perfectly aligned, her hands resting lightly on the translation pad. I fed a human phrase into the matrix, watched it decompose into Lyran phonemes, and read the output aloud. She corrected my tonal inflection twice, then nodded. Progress. Then came the phrase that would unravel everything. I was attempting to translate a human idiom about aesthetic appreciation. The matrix suggested a direct phonetic match. Kalin Vorshi. I pronounced it carefully, then added the colloquial English equivalent for contextual clarity. Gorgeous, I said, almost as an afterthought. It means exceptionally beautiful. The effect was instantaneous. Veolia's bioluminescent dermal layer flared a soft, radiant rose gold. Her vertical pupils widened, her breath hitched, a sound like wind through glass chimes. She leaned forward, her hands pressing flat against the console. In perfect, heavily accented English, she whispered, "You called me gorgeous." I froze. It was a translation example. "Not directed at you, it's just a human word. I didn't mean—" "Say it again, human," she interrupted, her voice trembling with something between awe and vulnerability. Her scales pulsed brighter, cycling through hues of coral and violet. "Please." I swallowed hard. The matrix blinked innocently beside me. I had just committed a catastrophic cultural misstep. In Lyrian society, aesthetic compliments were not casual. They were intimate, reserved for bonded partners or deeply trusted kin. To utter one without consent was considered profoundly personal, almost sacred, and I had done it by accident while reading a dictionary entry. "I'm sorry," I said carefully. "It was a mistake, a linguistic error. I didn't intend to." "Mistake or not," she said, her harmonic undertones vibrating through the console. The resonance was real. My body responded. My light acknowledged it. "Say it again, not as a translation, as you mean it." The air between us grew heavy, charged with unspoken weight. I looked at her, really looked at her, the way her scales caught the station's ambient lighting, the quiet intelligence in her gaze, the careful way she held herself, as if bracing for rejection. I realized then that the matrix had failed me, but my own perception had not. I had spent months studying her language, but I had never truly seen her. "Gorgeous," I said softly, deliberately. "You are." Her entire upper body flushed a brilliant, shimmering gold. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them, her expression transformed. "Thank you," she whispered. "In my culture, those words carry weight. They are not given lightly. Now that they are given, I must understand them. Teach me." What followed was not a romance born of sudden passion, but a slow, meticulous unraveling of two worlds. We began meeting outside formal sessions. I taught her human poetry, idioms, the messy beauty of unstructured emotion. She taught me Lyrian harmonic theory, the way their language mapped to emotional states, the sacred geometry of their courtship rituals. We walked the hydroponic gardens, watched meteor showers through reinforced glass, and debated the ethics of first contact protocols. The accidental compliment became a quiet anchor between us, a phrase we returned to not as a mistake, but as a promise. Then the anomaly struck. A deep space transmission breached Theta-7's comms array, bypassing standard encryption. It was not human, it was not Lyrian, it was older. The signal pulsed in mathematical sequences, layered with harmonic frequencies that made the station's AI stutter. I recognized fragments of Proto-Lyraean syntax buried beneath centuries of cosmic decay. Valia recognized it too, her scales dimmed to ash gray. "It is a homeworld distress beacon," she said, her voice hollow. "My people's ancestral archive. It should not be active. It should not be here." We worked for 72 hours straight. I mapped the signal's decay patterns, ran linguistic reconstructions, and cross-referenced with Coalition deep space logs. Valia harmonized with the transmission, her voice weaving through the static, coaxing hidden layers into coherence. We discovered the truth. A Lyran generation ship, lost during the Great Exodus, had drifted into a gravitational rift. Their descendants survived, but their navigation core was failing. The beacon was a final cry for coordinates. The Coalition command ordered silence. Protocol dictated non-interference with unverified extraterrestrial signals. Risk of contamination, political fallout, resource allocation, I argued. Valia argued. We were overruled. We cannot ignore them, I told her in the observation deck, the gas giant's rings casting long shadows across the floor. "They're your people, they're dying." "And if we transmit, we risk everything," she replied, her scales flickering with conflicted light. "My people value preservation, but we also value truth, and truth is that I cannot stand by while my ancestors fade into the dark." I looked at her, the woman who had blushed at a misplaced word, the scholar who had taught me that language is not just structure, but soul. I made my decision. We bypassed the comms lockdown. I rerouted power from non-essential systems. Valia calibrated the harmonic array to match the beacon's frequency. My hands shook as I input the coordinates. Hers trembled as she aligned the resonance matrix. We were violating a dozen regulations. We were risking our careers, our safety, possibly our lives, and neither of us hesitated. "Ready?" I asked. She nodded. Her bioluminescence flared steady, unwavering. "Transmit." The station shuddered as the array fired. A pulse of coherent data and harmonic frequency shot into the void, carrying coordinates, medical schematics, and a message of hope. We watched the telemetry screens, silence. Then, a response. Faint, fractured, but undeniable. Gratitude. A promise of survival. Valia exhaled a sound like distant bells. Her scales erupted in a cascade of gold, violet, and silver. She turned to me, her eyes shining. "You gave them a future." "We did," I corrected. She stepped closer. The space between us vanished. "You called me gorgeous by accident," she said softly, "but you meant it. I know you did. Say it again. Not as a linguist, not as a human following protocol, as yourself." I didn't hesitate. I didn't overthink. I let the words carry everything I had learned, everything I had felt, everything I had chosen. "Gorgeous," I said, my voice steady, my gaze unwavering. "You are, and you always will be." She smiled. It was the first time I had seen a Lyraean smile without harmonic accompaniment. It needed none. Her light answered for her, painting the observation deck in warm, radiant hues. She reached out, her fingers brushing mine. The contact was electric, gentle, profound. Outside, the rings of Oryx Prime turned slowly, indifferent to the quiet revolution happening inside. But inside, two worlds had finally aligned. We had broken rules, risked everything, and found something worth protecting. Not just a signal, not just a species. Each other. The Coalition would reprimand us. They would audit our logs, question our methods, debate our actions in sterile conference rooms. But they could not undo what had already been sent into the stars. They could not erase the truth that had grown between us, word by word, choice by choice, moment by moment. I called her gorgeous by mistake. She blushed. She asked me to say it again. And when I did, I finally understood that language is not just about translation. It is about intention. It is about seeing someone fully and having the courage to name what you see. The stars kept turning. The station kept humming. And in the quiet space between heartbeats, we stood together, no longer human and alien, but simply two souls who had found their frequency.